Over on Jaguar Gator 8, a new college football video is out. In this video, we talk about a bizarre controversy involving USC in the 1980s, and how they got invited to a bowl game under the strangest of circumstances. Click the card in the upper right corner to watch. And now, on with our feature presentation. I genuinely can't believe we're doing this again. I feel like I'm in Groundhog Day. I swear to God, if this is your first season here, I do other content. I really do. I make NFL history videos about stuff you've probably never heard of before. And we're going to get to that every single day when this offseason hits. But genuinely, for about the 500,000th time this season, we have yet another instance of a coach absolutely bungling the game from a clock management standpoint. How many times is this going to happen before coaches finally learn their lesson? Every single week. It's like these videos are mass manufactured, and there's a template at this point. Believe me, I want to talk about other things here. I really do. But these problems are just so bad, so egregious, and the in-game management skills around the league are at an all-time low, that I just can't not talk about it. It would be like avoiding the 800-pound gorilla in the room at this point. Because in an absolutely awful division, full of absolutely awful head coaches, we had yet another example of gross incompetence and a lesson in what not to do in timeout management, courtesy of the man you've been watching this whole time, Dennis Allen. For those who aren't watching this in the immediate aftermath of the game, here's a brief recap of how we got to this point. It's December 5th, 2022. It's week 13 of the NFL season, and as we wrap up this week in the NFL, we have a big divisional matchup on our hands down at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the New Orleans Saints. The importance of this game for the Saints, the main focus of our story, cannot be overstated. Even though they've had an absolutely terrible season thanks in part to some terrible coaching, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner, because the NFC South is the world's biggest train wreck of a division, the Saints, despite a 4-8 record, are still right in this thing. If they win this game, then they would be tied with the Falcons and the Buccaneers for the most wins in the division with 5. Remember, the Washington Commanders are last in their division, and they've got 7 wins. If the Saints lose this game, then they've got an uphill climb to win this division, seeing as they would be 4-9 and would only have 4 games left to make up a 2.5 game deficit, all while getting swept by the Bucs, meaning that they don't own the tiebreaker. So in actuality, they would be 3 back. Long story short, they need to win this game, or else their season is over. And so far, things are looking good for the Saints, as they have seemingly every time they've played the Bucs down in Tampa as of late. Through the first 3 quarters of the contest, they lead at 13-3, and have completely shut down Brady and this Bucs offense in front of a national television audience. After allowing a field goal on their opening drive of the game, the Saints responded by holding the Bucs scoreless on their next 8 possessions, with the Bucs picking up just 143 yards over that roughly 3/4 stretch, or under 18 yards per drive. With 5:30 left, the Buccaneers are down by 13 points, have the ball at their own 9-yard line, and they need to not only drive 91 yards here and do it relatively quickly, but they then need to get a stop and somehow do it again. For any other quarterback, you'd be saying that this game is over. Heck, even by Tom Brady's incredibly clutch standards and his history, this one was looking bleak. The Saints had an over 98% chance at winning the game at this point. Surely there was no way that Brady could make magic happen again, right? Well, if you said no, then you don't know Tom Brady, plain and simple. Because following a 91-yard drive culminating in a 1-yard touchdown pass by Brady to Cade Otton, and a 20-second drive by the Saints where they went 3 and out at quite literally the worst possible time, because they thought that drawing up a seam route to Taysom Hill over the middle of the field on 3rd down was a good idea, the Buccaneers had the ball in their hands, and Tom Brady had a chance to do it again. And you knew how this one was going to play out, because the Bucs just marched right down the field, and on 3rd and 6, Brady gets his team into the red zone by throwing a 7-yard pass to Scott Miller. At this point, if you're the Saints, You have to do damage control. You have to make sure, especially since the Bucs can't possibly win the game if they don't score here, that you can give yourself enough time to potentially mount a late drive of your own, however impossible it may be. I know the clock was your friend before, and to an extent, it still might be. But now, you have to be smart with how you manage this, because it's on the verge of becoming your enemy. And on first down, when Brady completes a 15-yard pass to Julio Jones, and Jones stays in bounds, we're at that point. The clock is no longer going to be an issue for the Bucs, especially since they have a timeout to burn if necessary, and since they're in a goal-to-go spot. If you're the Saints, you call a timeout here. You call a timeout. Come on, are you actually kidding me? You're going to let the clock run? You're not going to take your timeout right away? You do realize that if the Bucs score here, you've got no time left, right? How are you so bad at this, Dennis? Why are you not calling a timeout?
Brady's got him reeling. He's continuing to let the clock run, but a great catch by Julio Jones. And now a timeout's taken.
I mean, you called the timeout about 15 seconds too late. Good job. I'm sure this won't come back to backfire on you in any way whatsoever. I'm sure Tom Brady won't make you pay for this one like he's made teams pay for this for, the last 20 some odd years. Let's double check just to make sure.
It's third down. Underneath, and touchdown, Rachaad White!
Welcome to Dumb Decisions. Before I break down what happened here, this whole series is about taking an in-depth look at decisions made during games that were clearly awful from the start. This isn't something look bad in hindsight. Rather, this is something look awful almost immediately. These are moves where your gut instinct tells you right away that there is no way this can possibly work. And sure enough, your gut instinct was smarter than that of an NFL head coach. And for this one, we're taking a look at the mind of New Orleans Saints head coach Dennis Allen. I know we like to clown on Nathaniel Hackett, and rightfully so. It's a national pastime at this point for any NFL fan. And I know we all like to believe that he's going to be one of the very few one-and-done head coaches in the post-merger era. But very quietly, there might be a second one. And from all accounts, there should be a second one. Because Dennis Allen is so bad at this. I've criticized his coaching before, and panned him for how he handled the end of the game against the Arizona Cardinals, where it looked like he had no plan whatsoever for what he wanted to do late in that contest, as they were trying to get back into it. But of the many awful moves that he's made this year, this one has to be, without a doubt, the worst of them all. Was this poor clock management the reason that the Saints lost this game? No. But was it the reason that the Saints couldn't win this game? You bet. And yes, there is a difference. So with that being said, let's take a look at why not calling a timeout in a goal-to-go situation when you want the ball back is a really bad idea. At this point in the game, the Buccaneers only needed 5 yards. The drive could only end in one of two ways. They score, or they don't. There are no possible first downs they can get outside of if you give them one on a penalty. They have 4 plays left to make it happen. That is a finite number. You can see the finish line. Now, if the Bucs didn't have a timeout to work with, this is a completely different story, since even despite the short distance, the clock could absolutely be an issue for them. A penalty could force a 10-second runoff, and they wouldn't be able to burn a timeout to prevent it. That could end the game. A play over the middle of the field could be absolutely disastrous. But because they had a timeout and a short distance, bottom line, the clock doesn't matter at this point for the Bucs. They have 4 chances to get a playoff, and they're going to get 4 cracks at it no matter what. Again, it would be different if by calling a timeout early, you're giving them an extra play and an extra down to work with, and you're balancing the risk and reward of that. But you're not. Brady's done this many times before, and if you did nothing, the Bucs were going to get to the line and snap it with about 20 seconds left. And with 20 seconds left and a timeout, you easily have enough time for 4 plays. However, while the clock is not an issue for the Bucs at all anymore because of their timeout situation and because they don't have to go very far to reach the end zone, It is absolutely an issue for you as the Saints. No matter what happens at this point, if you prevent the Bucs from scoring a touchdown, the game is over. They do not have enough timeouts left to stop the clock and prevent you from calling 3 kneel downs. And heck, even if they did have all 3 timeouts, it wouldn't mean anything, because there's so little time left that if you got the stop, you could run the clock with 3 knees, and even if they take their timeouts, you could win it 16-12 on an intentional safety. In other words, the fear of leaving too much time for the Bucs to do anything if you get a stop is irrelevant and meaningless. This is the last time they'll touch the ball, no matter what. That means that if the clock is not an issue for the Bucs from a sense of being able to have enough chances to find the end zone, and it's not an issue for potentially giving the ball back to the Bucs if your defense makes the play, and those two invalid concerns are out the window, then the clock can only be one thing. And that thing is a thing that prevents you from having enough time to mount a drive of your own and respond if they score. You've got all 3 of your timeouts. Let's say that you call timeout right away after the Julio Jones catch. That means you're calling it with 34 seconds left, and you have 2 timeouts. If the Bucs score on the next play, roughly speaking, you have 30 seconds and 2 timeouts to work with. If they score in 2 plays, you have 26 seconds, and at worst, 1 timeout. If they score in 3 plays, you have 22 seconds, and at worst, no timeouts. And if they score in 4 plays, odds are, since they're not calling any running plays in this spot, there would have probably been an incomplete pass somewhere in there that would have stopped the clock, where you didn't need to burn a timeout. In other words, if you call a timeout right away, then unless your defense commits a penalty and gives the Bucs an automatic first down, and unless your defense shoots itself in the foot that way, should you give up a score, you will have a chance to get the ball back with the opportunity to call a few plays down the sideline. Now obviously, I'm not naive. Your odds are not great. Even in the best case scenario, where you allow the touchdown right away and you have 30 seconds left and 2 timeouts, I'm not betting on Andy Dalton to go 40 or so yards to get into field goal range for Will Lutz. But it at least gives you a fighting chance. At the very least, it gives you a better chance than having to rely on something miraculous. Although it wouldn't be the first time that the Saints pulled off a miracle in a December game while fighting for their playoff lives against a Florida team. In other words, with good clock management, you've got a chance to get the ball back. Compare that to what Dennis Allen did by waiting 15 seconds to call the timeout, where he's calling it with 19 seconds left, and yeah, you can see where that might be a problem. You could have potentially had the ball back by this point with the same number of timeouts to work with, depending on how early the Bucs scored. Instead, you've all but guaranteed that if the Bucs score a touchdown here, you will not have enough time to touch the ball and mount a meaningful possession that is anything other than a Hail Mary or a backyard lateral play. I'm just using this as an illustration since sometimes the clock can be an abstract concept, and I'm not doing this to look back in hindsight. But if we assume that everything else stayed the same, if the Saints called their timeout with 34 seconds left, then they would have gotten the ball back with 18 seconds left in the game and would have had 2 timeouts to still work with. That's enough time to use the middle of the field for 2 plays, the sideline for 1 play, and then have 1 more play to work with. By waiting 15 seconds to call a timeout that you should have called right away, you wasted 4 plays. You handicap yourself for no reason, and you ensure that if the Bucs score, you will lose the game. By your own incompetence, you cost your team a chance at winning late. It truly is amazing how so many coaches this season are so bad at this. But with the Saints entering this late bye week of theirs, they have to ask some serious questions about whether or not this is the guy they still want leading their regime. Because this is very clearly not working. Allen was a bad head coach in Oakland, and he's a bad head coach now, because this clock management was inexcusable. So what do we learn from all this? Honestly, I don't even know what to say for this anymore regarding clock management and the importance of using timeouts to your advantage that I haven't said every week for the last 3 months. So I won't even bother repeating myself here, because oxygen is precious, and I don't want to waste it on coaches who have no ability to hear what I'm saying. But to be this incompetent when Tom Brady is on the other side, knowing that he's going to do Tom Brady things to you, and knowing that the division is on the line, when all these elements are in play, you can't exactly be surprised when this play backfires. Talk about a dumb decision. Get your official Jaguar Gator 9 merchandise by going to jg9shop.com, and be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, and subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check out Twitch every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL Trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at JaguarGator9. To see college football videos, subscribe to JaguarGator8. To see highlight videos of players throughout the history of the NFL, subscribe to JG9 Highlights. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. So you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.